I just wanted to get that out of the way early for people. Mother is Nintendo's only Famicom release of 1989. There's a couple of disk system games, but really they were putting everything into the Game Boy and prepping for the Super Famicom. But the Famicom game that they made in 1989 is one of the high points of the system. The lead off of a series whose cult status became so ubiquitous that Nintendo released an English version of this game 25 years after its initial release. And to talk about Mother, first I have to talk about Shigesato Itoi. Itoi started his career as an ad man, coming up with slogans for things like department stores and Studio Ghibli films. In the early 80s he became a bit of a celebrity, and his career branched off in way too many directions to cover here, including being president of the Japan Monopoly Association. Eventually, through his professional connections, he met Hiroshi Yamauchi and Shigeru Miyamoto, and they wanted him to design a game. Later on, he'd meet Satoru Iwata, and Itoi would wind up running HAL Laboratory. And in the meantime, Itoi was doing, well, more things than I can even count. Oddly enough, despite continuing to write copy for advertisements, Itoi did not come up with the slogan for Mother, which was one of the best remembered slogans of the Famicom era. No crying until the ending. Before I move on here, Itoi is often credited as coming up with the name Game Boy, but that is something that he denies. It was due to Itoi that Mother was not just a game. It was a multimedia marketing blitz. The soundtrack, for example, was released in August, and it wasn't just the music, it was vocal arrangement of the key pieces. And since Mother has one of the best soundtracks on the Famicom, it's quite something to listen to. And yes, that means there are lyrics to most of the music in the game, and a lot of the lyrics are in English. The official guidebook to Mother also took a radically different direction. It's not a guide, it's an encyclopedia. And rather than being a straightforward how do you get to the end of the game guide, it's a travel guide to the world of Mother, and doesn't use any screenshots. It's all photographs of real-world locations. So Mother was a very big deal, and in tone and presentation, totally unlike anything seen before on the Famicom. And if I break down the gameplay, it doesn't really seem that special. In the moment-to-moment gameplay, Mother is just another Dragon Quest clone. You walk around, you get into random battles, you choose to attack, use magic, which is of course Psi, you get experience points and money for defeating enemies. As you walk around the environment, you hit A to bring up a menu where you can talk to people, check out what's in front of you, or use an item from your inventory. The thing is, the devil's really in the details here. And there are a lot of details. When you start the game, you name everybody that will be a permanent fixture in your party. You also have to pick out your favorite food. And then the adventure begins with strange psychic phenomenon occurring in your home. After taking out the possessed household items, you get your first melody, which are the real goal of the game. As you explore the world, you'll be collecting bits of melody, which are the key to defeating the alien invader that's causing problems all over the world. With your family saved, you can talk to your distant father on the phone, and he'll tell you how much money he's deposited in your bank account. Talking to your father is also how you save the game, and you'll have to locate phones around the world. Sometimes they're pay phones and you'll have to have cash for them. Your mother will stay at the house, and if you come back, she'll give you a meal of your favorite food, which naturally restores all your health and Psi points. And then you step out the door and hit the biggest problem with the game. You gotta grind. Just walking to the next destination won't get you enough money to upgrade your equipment, and won't give you enough experience to survive. So you have to grind. In fact, for about the first half hour or so, you really can't go far from your house. When one bad encounter will kill you, you have to stick by the healing. Once you're strong enough, you can start heading into town, and you'll pass something else distinctive about Mother. There's a lot of scripted NPC behavior. The few RPGs that do this generally restrict that to cutscenes. But here we have a mother standing in place and frantically searching for her daughter. Another thing you're going to notice on your way to town? The map is seamless. You'll be walking the whole way from your front door to the end of the world, and it's contiguous. No breaking out into a larger overworld or anything like that. The nearest town is Mother's Day, and for some reason a lot of the towns in the game are named for holidays. The town is where you can buy new equipment, and really the only equipment that you have to worry about in the game are weapons. In the town you'll find a hospital. That's where your companions go if they fall in battle. At the department store you can get your cash out of the ATM, and you actually have to use your card on the machine to get your money. The mayor in town will ask for your help in finding the lost girl, and then you're sent off toward the cemetery. It's filled with undead monsters and an extra dungeon, and when you find the lost child eventually, she'll join you as a companion. She's not a permanent companion though. She'll depart once you get back to the mayor's office. And that's where I had to stop recording. Mother is a pretty big game, so I've just barely scratched the surface here. There's a few more things you need to be aware of. There's a fatal bug in the game that's a bit infamous. You have to eat food to recover health, and there are some enemies that will steal food. So if you eat food on the same turn that one of those enemies steals your food, then they'll steal the next item in your inventory. And that could be a key item required to complete the game. Another weird thing about the combat is that there's a time limit. If for some reason the combat goes 256 rounds, the battle ends in a tie. One of the big problems with Mother is that the game doesn't give you a lot of direction, and if you miss something, you could get really lost. For example, on the way into the town of Mother's Day, you pass a bird sanctuary, and the department store happens to sell one of those birds. So you need to get the bird from the department store and use it on someone there, and that unlocks the second melody. There isn't a step-by-step direction that you need to do this. You have to observe and draw some conclusions. Needless to say, Mother was big. The distinctive setting and style was inspirational for a lot of people too. The look of the towns and the main character, for example, was directly copied for Pocket Monsters. And of course, everyone is familiar with the two sequels. Although I have a confession here, I don't like Earthbound. The combat mechanics in it really get on my nerves. But in the original Mother, it's just a standard RPG combat system, and while it's a bit bland, I also think it's more playable. I think the big stumbling block for most people with Mother is that it is an 8-bit RPG. Combat heavy, a lot of grinding, and no hand-holding, even when it really would be appropriate to hold somebody's hand. But it's also distinctive and creative and original. It gets metatextual at several points. It took the standard RPG formula and did something very different with it. And the result was one of the most beloved Famicom games.